Welcome everybody out to the March 6, 2023 meeting. We'll be going into closed session pursuant to 143, 318, 11A3 to consult with the town attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privileges between the attorney and the counsel, which privilege is hereby acknowledged. Also pursuant to 143, 318, 11A5 to instruct the public bodies, staff concerning
A6.
I got three here. A5, A6. See, I got 5 and 6. Okay.
You're in the wrong agenda.
Why is this what I got? Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Here you go. Where'd that paper come from? Who set this on my desk? Here, I set it over there. Anyway, first one was right. Pursuant to 3, April the 3rd, 2023 meeting. Sorry, wrong agenda sitting here. Pursuant to 143, 318, 11A3 to consult with the town attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the counsel, which privilege is hereby acknowledged, and also pursuant to 143, 318, 11A6 to consider a personnel matter. Do I have a motion we go into closed session? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Like to welcome everybody back to our April 3rd, 2023 meeting. We're coming out of closed session. Do I have a motion to come out of closed session?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, welcome everybody out. Does any member of council have a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest in regards to any item on the agenda? If so, please state at this time. Mr. Borman? Mr. Nern?
No, sir.
Mr. Corbett?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Hargraves. Thank you. Moving on, amendment and approval of the draft agenda. We need to add the Board of Adjustment appointments. Let's see about putting those in at number 6 on new business. That'll move the disposition of directives to number 7. Is there anything else that needs to be added?
I've got one.
Go ahead, sir.
Actually, it's a drop. Drop the ERC meeting.
Which is number 1 on
ERC Chairman John Farrell has pneumonia, so he can't make it. I would just like to encourage council to go over the contents there so that at this next meeting, we can provide good, clear guidance on what it is that we're looking for to be accomplished by the ERC.
Does any member of council have anything else?
No, sir.
I do.
Go ahead, sir.
As everybody knows, last week was our 60th anniversary.
That'd be
That's-
general council discussion.
That's,
Let's do that at general council. This is just for amendment and approval.
Oh,
of
I'm
the draft
sorry.
agenda. I'll remind you.
I was
I'll
just,
wake you up.
I was just ahead.
Okay.
A little bit.
He's
All
always,
right.
he's always ahead.
If there's nothing else, do I have a motion to approve the draft agenda?
So
moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving on, action, discussion resulting from closed session. We have no results from there, so
Correct.
unless you have anything, Grady,
No action
we'll move
taken.
on from there. General council discussions. Go ahead, Mr. Nairn.
Thank you.
Sir.
Last Saturday was the town's 60th anniversary. First of all, our staff did just an outstanding job. Every single person on the staff. I was worried about the parking. That went off, I think, without a hitch. I never heard anything. And fire department was there. Just everybody did something. And then on top of the staff, the town's nonprofits ran the games, the kitty corner and the boss thing,
the art,
the
the
art
photo
show,
contest.
art contest. And then on top of that, many businesses donated prizes that were given out during the drawing. We were supported by other businesses in other ways. So it was a real town effort. And I couldn't have been prouder of everybody's performance. So thank you all.
I agree with what Charlie said.
And we all second that. Yeah, thank you so much. You did a great job. Great job.
Anything else?
Yes,
Go ahead, sir.
I have several things. I will make them brief. Last Tuesday, I attended a GSATS meeting. John and Jamie were tied up. They couldn't attend, so I volunteered to attend the GSATS meeting. GSATS is simply for those of you who don't know, simply Grand Strand Area Transportation Study. It's responsible for carrying out the planning process for transportation in the Grand Strand area. It's basically a forum for, you would say, cooperative decision making. It works closely with NCDOT on projects locally and where they will be, and so it's quite an organization. I was impressed at how they worked and how they got things done. 3 things affected us that they did that day. 3 things. One was the Calabash Bridge. We all know the Calabash Bridge. It's time for that construction. On May 16th of next month, the project will be awarded. It will be let, as they call it. The firm and the contractor will have about 60 to 90 days to do utilities from that time on. And the bridge closure will take place right now, September 1st, September 1st of this year. The bridge will be open to traffic again on February 2025. That's 18 months from the closure. So that's a long time. And we know that there's certain negatives for our town with this construction. So certainly the citizens who want to travel south, certainly from the south end of the town who want to travel further south, get around to Calabash and point south from there, are going to have to take a very long detour, which is going to probably take an awful lot of time off on their trips for sure. The bridge closure also will be through the part of hurricane season this year and all of hurricane season next year, which is a reality we're going to have to live with, which is going to be, we're going to hope for some calm times during these next two hurricane seasons. The second thing is the stoplight at the north entrance of Sea Trail, Clubhouse Road and Old Georgetown Road. Remember there was a traffic study done quite a while ago by the NCDOT. Determined the need for the traffic light. They didn't have any money available for the traffic light, which would cost over $300,000. We've been waiting, and that's a crucial stoplight to put in place, I firmly believe, because of the bridge construction. That shortcut, the shortest way through, around for the people who live in that area by the bridge is going to be coming down and cut through Sea Trail, cut through Clubhouse Road to Old Georgetown Road, and that light will be crucial. And I spoke this week to Chad Kimes, who's the division director for division engineer for NCDOT. And the traffic signal is fully funded as of now, and hopefully will be installed prior to the Calabash Bridge closure. So that's a huge safety issue, hopefully, if they can pull all that off. So the third thing is the Carolina Bays Parkway. You've heard about that, hopefully. That's a road that's going to be constructed that connects South Carolina 31 from Route 9 to US 17 in Brunswick County. The problem is the actual decision as to the route of the Carolina Bays Parkway in North Carolina has not yet been determined. There are some questions of where it should go. The final decision on the route will take place in the fall of this year. And the draft environmental impact study has been done. Public hearings will begin this summer. And they stressed how public input will be critical component in the decision-making of the route or how this road will hook up to Route 17 and where it will hook up to Route 17. Now, John's been involved in this for a long time. And so I'm going to see if he wants to add anything to that. He can sort of describe the places where it might come into 17. And this town has taken a stance on it, a pretty strong stance. And now we're getting with some other towns on that. So it looks like we got some clout. So go ahead.
One of the biggest concerns we have is that many of the plans kind of indicate they're going to come into the intersection of 904 and US 17. We have sent resolutions in and shared them with the town and other authorities twice before, year apart, recommending that there be a route inland of US 17 and not come in anywhere near 904, which have a major impact on our area. When the public hearings start, it becomes critical that the people who live on this side of US 17 articulate their concerns and tell NCDOT to keep the road inland of US 17. And the council, I'm pretty sure the council again will do another resolution and try to work with the other towns. So that'll be a big issue for us at some point in the future. Thank you. That's
Okay,
all.
yeah, good job. The second thing was John and I attended the Brunswick County Shoreline Protection Consortium meeting. That was on Wednesday of last week. As usual, we gave an update to the consortium. The consortium is simply beach communities on Brunswick County, beach communities, Brunswick County, getting together, talking, comparing notes and that kind of stuff. It's a real interesting group of towns getting together and with a lot of similar concerns. We gave a report on dredging like we have in the past. We've explained that dredging phase 2 has been halted now because it ended in March 31st by rules, and it'll pick up again on October 1. Certainly, we got to complete the Bay Area, the channels. We have to complete the Four Finger Canals, and on the mainland, Mary's Creek and Turtles Creek. So we're looking forward to get that started October 1 and get this whole dredging sequence done. Much of the time in that meeting I was taking up with wind energy projects that has changed a little bit since our last report. There are two wind energy areas off the coast of Brunswick County. One of them is off the coast of Oak Island and off the coast of Bald Head Island. That's not two, that's one of them out there. That one has actually been leased. By the federal government. The two companies, Duke Energy and Total Energy Renewables USA, have bid and have been awarded contracts to build turbines out there in the ocean. The good thing for us has been that the federal government has determined that that wind area will move further off the coast. It's going to go off at least 20 nautical miles, which means about 24 real miles as we know them, off the coast, which is good. The further you can get them out, the less you can see the lighting at night and all that kind of stuff. So that's the Wilmington East project. The Wilmington West project, which has not been awarded any leases and won't be, is off the coast of South Brunswick County. That's us. North Myrtle Beach and Myrtle Beach. That one, to end this conversation, would have turbines about 5 to 7 miles off the coast. And this area has been eliminated by the federal government. Eliminated as we'll have no wind farms. That's it. It's done. The reasons they gave, it'll interfere with migration of fish and whales, shipping lanes, and so on. We also know that the governor of South Carolina was not very happy with an economy of tourism in Myrtle Beach area, having people go up on the higher floors of those condos or those hotels and so on and see turbines. And so that was a big effort to stop it. It has been stopped. We should not have that off our coast. Now, with that, we finally know the location now of where they're going to do it off the coast. Obviously, Bald Head Island and Oak Island. The Brunswick Consortium now is going to strive to influence as much as we can where the power lines from Wilmington East will go, where they will host or come into the shoreline, and the impact on tourism, obviously, sport, commercial fishing, and environmental concerns. So that we're going to start looking at now to try to help and make sure that in the future, we want to be sure that the wind farm out there, the two of them, two major ones, will have as little impact as possible on the life of people in Brunswick County. So that's a lot of work to do. We're going to keep an eye on things, and hopefully we have some clout to make some inwards and what they're thinking of doing. So that's that. And finally, a quick update on Beach Parking Committee. The Beach Parking Committee took applications up to March 24th. We had 57 applications submitted for the Beach Parking Committee for the island. Town staff then took charge and did a fantastic job. First of all, they reviewed each application. 11 applications were found not to be submitted by full-time residents. That's being worked on right now, but they were no longer be considered for the committee. Applications were put in one of 3 piles, one for the mainland, one for the island, and one for island merchants. And then all personal information and signatures on each application were blanked out, eradicated so that as we rate, we don't know who turned in these applications. Now applications have been given to the town administrator, the mayor, and all the council members to rate from 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, and that is what is currently happening at this time. We'll report back at the next meeting of the council on who the new committee members will be. Thank you. That's it. Any
Anyone
questions on any of that? Sorry,
None.
should have asked it. Okay,
Anyone else?
thank you.
Got anything
No, sir.
else? All right, moving on, our presentation and requests from Palm Cove representatives. You have the floor.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to be here this evening. My name is Brad Rosov. I'm a biologist and project manager with a coastal engineering firm called Coastal Protection Engineering, or CPE. We're based out of Wilmington, and I'm here this evening representing folks from the Palm Cove HOA, and we're joined tonight by a couple of representatives from the HOA and as well their legal counsel, Todd Rossler. So what I want to do, talk to you a little bit about tonight is the proposed eastern channel of Jinks Creek navigation and shoreline erosion mitigation project. So you can turn your attention to the screen and kind of walk you through. The purpose of this meeting or this presentation this evening is to, one, orient you with this proposed project, let you understand how it came to be and what the need is, and more importantly, what the benefits are, not only to the HOA, but to the town as well. And as I get towards the end of this, hopefully 10, maybe 15-minute presentation, I'll try and walk it through as quickly as I can for your benefit. But towards the end, we'll talk about how we're hoping the town will help push this project forward. We're looking to garner your support. Just from the get-go, I'll tell you it's a non-financial support that the HOA is looking for. So first, not that you need to be oriented with your town, but just so we're all on the same footing, that project location figure shows right central there is that eastern portion of the island. That's the Palm Cove HOA, which is 10 individual lots. There's 5 homes that have been built in that private neighborhood. To the right, of course, is the end of the island bordered with Tubbs Inlet, and further to the east, of course, is Ocean Isle Beach. And Jinks Creek runs all the way up to the AIWW heading north and cuts across the backside of the Palm Cove HOA. And you'll see that big, large sand spit, of course, going into the inlet area. That's that flood tide delta that builds up with all the material migrating and moving around as they do in these natural, very highly dynamic inlet areas. So first, what I'd like to do here is what I wrote up there is introduction to the problems. This project has been formulated to address 2 problems that is occurring. Originally, the Palm Cove HOA actually approached us, my firm. It's been about a year now, in fact. I was looking back at it. It's been a year since some of their problems were getting significant enough to hire a coastal engineering firm like ourselves. And you can see in the aerial on the left, there's a sandbag revetment showing some significant erosion on their estuarine shoreline there in front of their properties on the backside of the island. And you can see that little yellow arrow points to that one home on the end, and on the other shot that's zoomed out a little bit, you can clearly see where that's oriented. And there's some deep water there, and I'll get to that in just a little bit. But in essence, there's a shoreline erosion problem that's occurring. But as you also know, there's a navigation issue that the town has been proactively addressing over the past year and change with your dredging of South Jinks Channel. And I know, obviously, you just mentioned you're working on the feeder canals right now. But navigation to get out and navigate throughout these areas that folks can recreate has been a challenge, and you've been addressing it. And this project, which we'll discuss this evening, will further that and help benefit the town even further as well. So focusing first on that shoreline erosion problem specifically, as you can see, these images, some of them aerial images, are showing what the conditions looked like several years ago, 5-6 years ago, just as the erosion was really starting to pick up in that area. That says 2018. You can see that there's a sandy beach along that HOA shoreline there. And you can see on the bottom right, folks pull up their boats, they recreate. Apparently these folks like inner tubes. But people can, pull their boats up and relax and use that area as a recreational area. But starting back, really like 2016 is when it really started occurring. Maybe 2009, erosion started occurring at a relatively slower rate, maybe 2 feet a year, 4 feet a year, as it started incrementally increasing over time. But when we got to 2016, that's when the sand really started peeling back. And if you look at that yellow line along that shoreline, that really denotes that edge of the shoreline. But if you jump forward a few years, this is the 2021 is in red. You could see the difference there, how much it's eroded back. And in the average rate of erosion between 2016 and 2020 was 16 feet per year. It increased up to 29 feet or maybe even 32 feet per year in recent years. So there's been a considerable erosion in this area to the point where the road has been threatened. It's a private road, but that road has been threatened. And there's concerns for those homes' well-being. Now, I'll just walk you through a couple slides here. Again, you can see, if you can see that yellow shoreline line that's on there. And this is from 2016, but I zoomed out a bit so you could see the greater Tubbs Inlet complex. And you can see, if you follow through here, one thing to look at, and these are different tides, so it's not always apples to apples, but what you can see is that flood tide channel comes in, it comes on the other side of that big delta, and it swoops down, and it comes down right to that Palm Cove shoreline to the point where it's eroding. Basically, it's a high rate of scour. There's high velocity of water moving in front of that shoreline. We've done some measurements and some studies to document that that water truly is swiftly moving comparatively compared to other areas. That's what's causing that erosion. And so in light of that erosion, the town banded together and they constructed in April of 2020 a sandbag revetment. It's a temporary Band-Aid solution for a shoreline erosion problem like that. But the hope was that, maybe there'd be some reconfiguration of that channel that was out there, buy them more time so they could figure things out. Well, actually since 2020 until 2022, when this, in the early part of 2022, when the next supersized sandbag revetment had to be installed, erosion was just continuing. So the town was forced to actually receive a variance from the Division of Coastal Management to receive that sandbag, that supersized sandbag permit. Part of that permit requires the HOA.
I'm sorry. You're saying the town.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's the HOA.
HOA. Yeah.
So all the way through there,
Thank
it
you.
was the HOA
The
that went
HOA.
and got the permits.
100%,
and Took
yep.
care of the sandbags and did all that.
100%. I completely misspoke. I appreciate you saying that. So this was 100% HOA funded, permitted, and the like. Thank you. When they received that supersized sandbag variance, one of the stipulations in that variance requires them to seek a long-term solution. So these sandbags are not deemed to be there in perpetuity. In fact, they have a lifespan, and those permits expire. So that's what bend them forward to helpfully design a project that could be a long-term solution for this erosion problem. Now, meanwhile, just to backtrack on the navigation issue, as you well know, I don't need to tell, the town's project was this navigation project. Well, you started on the outside portion with that Jinx Creek dredging. You're working on and continuing to work on the feeder canals in that area right now to address the navigability issue for the boaters and the residents and visitors in the area. That first phase was that South Jinx Creek dredging project, and I have both figures oriented well so you can see, and you can clearly see on the right-hand side there, that aerial image clearly shows the footprint of that dredging that was completed in the spring of this past year. And you can see where that dredging was completed down to 6 feet, -6 feet mean low water. And the areas clearly around it are not that shallow. So, you've got to get up on plane pretty quickly or be at mercy of the tides a bit to get out. You had your shellfish issues to be able to dredge all the way out to the AIWW, which precluded that aspect of the project. But you can see on the top portion, the footprint stops right at the portion of the Palm Cove HOA shoreline. So right now, people are able to get out of their canals, which is great, and they can access this water. But there's still navigability issues to get out, say, towards the inlet or the AIWW. And here's just an image again that shows that footprint. That yellow arrow should show you where that dredging stopped, and in relation to that Palm Cove HOA shoreline. Now it's nice and deep right in front of the HOA shoreline there because of all that scour. That's what's causing all that erosion on that shoreline.
Say that again.
There's a lot of erosion. There's deep water in front of the Palm Cove shoreline. It's a good 15 feet, 12 feet deep in that area because of all that scour. That's all that high velocity water that's moving through. But if you look beyond that HOA shoreline there, heading towards Tubbs, it's shallow again. So the HOA brought us in to help them conceptualize a project that would be that permanent solution for their shoreline erosion problem specifically. And what you're seeing on the screen there is a green box. That is a conceptualized hypothetical solution to the problem. That's without any sort of engineering design at this stage. That's not with the robust numerical modeling work that would be done to appease agencies and to ensure that the project would do what it's designed to do. But what you're seeing there is basically the footprint of continuing the dredging area where that stopped right in front of the HOA and continue it out towards Tubbs Inlet, basically extending the eastern channel out towards the inlet throat. The benefits of this project is not just to improve the shoreline problem that's been occurring in front of the HOA, but also it'll improve that navigability for folks who now can get out of the canals and head out towards the eastern channel of Jinx Creek towards Ocean Isle Beach, connect over to Ocean Isle Beach as well, and towards Tubbs Inlet. Of course, it would mitigate the problem that they have. That's why they brought us in the first place. But also, the last feature is to provide an access to the newly created beach, which would be along that estuarine shoreline for any of the visitors or tourists that come to recreate, just like you saw that picture in the beginning with folks with the inner tubes, because the idea would be the material that would be dredged out to create that 6-foot deep channel, about 100 feet wide. Again, this is conceptual at this point. But that material, some or all of it, would be then placed on the estuarine shoreline where it's exceedingly deep right now to restore the historical beach that had been there in the past. And you can see that kind of tan looking sliver, that conceptualized area where the fill would be placed that's a cross section where you fill in that deepness and you have a slope going out and basically widens that beach. So basically there's threefold benefits to the project, meeting the HOA's goals and providing benefits to the town's visitors and tourists and property owners alike. So we actually had met with several of you here this evening, Ms. England, Mr. Richardson, and Mr. Corbett back in September to first basically pitch this notion to the town, saying, hey, the HOA has this issue. One thing that they'd like to take advantage of is the shallow draft fund, which you all are very experienced in understanding. That's how your navigation project was cost shared with the state for that 25% cost share. So the HOA is interested to see if the town would be interested in participating and serving as the applicant for that fund, due to the fact that the fund does not allow a private entity like the HOA to apply, but rather it's there for local municipalities. So following that meeting, there were some questions out there. One of the questions was, hey, are there any obvious impediments to this project that the town wouldn't necessarily want to get involved in this sort of project? If there was any issues from the regulatory side or natural resources side, environmental side, let's clear that. Let's make sure that's not an impediment from the get-go before we have any further discussions. So what we did was we organized an interagency scoping meeting. This is a meeting with all the different representatives from CAMA, DCM, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, all these different federal and state divisions and agencies, such that they could weigh in on this proposed project. Basically, what I've shared with you this evening is a level of detail we provide them at that project, along with some other environmental maps and figures where we showed where these resources are. And the bottom line is some of the input, we heard the typical input that we would hear for these sorts of projects. And we heard, do your numerical modeling. Let's assess how this project would perform using the modeling, using your engineering work, dig in before we can really tell you more about the project and what the other pitfalls could be. They mentioned the typical shellfish bed surveys, SAV surveys would be required as well, or be at least highly suggested. We discussed the permitting approach, what it would take for NEPA documentation, all the typical permitting things were discussed. But the bottom line, we were pleased. We walked out of that door and they did not express any concerns, no showstoppers, which was really the bar that you all had set forth for us to vet before we came back before you, which is where we are tonight. So we've kind of crossed that threshold. So I'm excited. It's been a year since we've started this process. The HOA brought us in at least, and now this is that moment that we've been excited to get in front of you and discuss what we feel is that a reasonable path forward, such that the HOA can implement this project on their own dime and on their time, but working with the town, with your support, to help foster this project, move forward and obtain those shallow draft funds that are required to move this probably about a $4 million project forward. So, again, you're all well aware that the shallow draft fund is at 25% cost share. The HOA would be prepared to burden themselves with that 25% local match completely without any ask of the town. With that, the portion that the HOA would like to ask is for you all to pass a resolution and to agree to serve as that applicant for that grant. The HOA would do the legwork, the lifting work to populate and create and submit that, or turn to you all that application so that you can submit it. So you all would serve as the applicant. And again, HOA would cover the 100% of that local cost share. And then going through the project as it goes through implementation for planning, permitting, design work, all the way through construction and post-construction monitoring and the like, Palm Cove would manage all aspects of that project in coordination, as much coordination as the town would like to be involved. And finally, to help codify all this when I'm kind of spitballing at you right now and throwing a lot at you. All the different questions and concerns could be all basically codified nicely in an MOA, an agreement that hits on any issues or concerns you may have that can all be tied up. We've actually drafted a draft MOA already and provided to the town for review. And we'd be very curious to hear any feedback you all have from that. So that's the aspect I'd like to cover. And if you have any questions or concerns, there's a little more meat on the bone with the proposed MOA. And I can turn this over to the town's legal counsel, Todd Rossler. Todd, if you want to hit on any of that, or it's fairly duplicative, I think, what I've mentioned here. But really, if you have anything to mention.
I don't really have anything to add. Todd Ressler, the HOA's attorney. I did draft this memorandum of agreement for the town's consideration. I do want to make it clear that this is a draft. We'd be happy to listen to your concerns if you have anything, but bottom line, we are not asking for any financial contribution from the town. We just need the town to apply to the shallow draft fund so we can access those funds from the state. But again, this is all conceptual at this point. We're looking for your buy-in and happy to discuss any concerns that you might have tonight.
Just to close off, when we're sitting back looking at this project, we see this strictly as a win-win for the town and, of course, the HOA. We feel that we can come to an agreement where, again, with no financial responsibility from the town, we see the upside, the benefits for the town, for the visitors, for the property owners to increase their navigability and ability to access and recreate throughout the area, while the HOA gets what they truly desperately need at this time, which is a shore protection project and being able to take advantage of that shallow draft fund to make it a reality. And so with that, I believe that, that is all we had this evening.
Could you point out the area to be dredged again?
Sure.
It's hard to see from here.
It is.
Will we get hard copies of this?
I'd be happy to share
the
that
town
with you.
We can,
For sure. And I want to caveat this. What you see, it's that green footprint there.
that's what's hard to see from here.
It's basically, I'll just describe it as simple as it is, because it's basically where the, I'll back up just a little bit. The footprint of that basically picks up. Do you see where the dredging stops
Yes.
right at HOA shoreline?
Right.
It basically connects that deep water all the way out to the top of that big, large ebb shoal, connecting to basically the throat of, or the top of Tubbs Inlet in that area. So it's a long, and this representation shows about a 3,500 foot long, 100 foot wide channel. But I do want to note that's strictly looking at aerial photographs, analyzing at that very conceptual level. There'd be a lot of engineering work, numerical modeling work that would refine what the actual footprint would look like at the end of the day that would meet the goals.
Where does Sunset Beach stop and OIB begin?
I believe very close to that point. If you look at, I believe I saw the jurisdictional line very close to that line, but I have to be.
How's that in relation with the 10 homes or 10 lots that are on Cove?
How's that in the relation?
Yeah.
Which I'm.
Well, you're talking about the point. Tom, could you point to the top there?
Yeah.
Where does the green go?
It goes through this sand area here and goes up. So it takes the bend out
Okay.
and just goes straight line. So
Straight line to where?
up to here,
To right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
all the way up to here, which is not part of Palm Cove anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So my understanding is that Sunset Beach ends about one lot after the last, right down there where you.
Yeah, right down about
Is that correct, Lisa? Close, approximate?
So you're not simply dredging, you're changing the whole routing of that flow of water.
The intention is to relocate that high velocity water that's continuing to scour and erosion and cause erosion on that shoreline, and basically move it up and away such that you would create a channel further away so it wouldn't impact that.
That
shoreline.
scouring you're talking about, does that begin at the north point or the farthest point to the
Where
right?
you see it coming straight down, let me see if I'll find another
From Tubbs.
image here that shows it. Let me go back.
Yeah.
Right. Here's a good one. Where the channel comes straight north-south. Yep,
cuts
right,
through
comes straight down there, and it brings with it high velocity, which was bringing all that scour against that shoreline. When it hits almost perpendicular there, the water has nowhere to go. All the energy pushes against that shoreline.
Okay, so it's water that comes originally from Tubbs Inlet,
Correct.
not from Jinks Creek.
Well, it's tidal, high
Yeah.
tide, but the high velocity is coming on that incoming tide.
Okay.
So,
You're really just making it like it was before all the erosion.
It's the concept is to bring it to its historical position before the erosion, back when things were more stable. And it's a dynamic system. These areas are dynamic. They're meant to be dynamic, and they are. And they'll continue to change. You can have 1 year of accretion and 1 year of erosion, but we've been on a trend of a lot of erosion over the past almost a decade now. And the idea is now let's keep this in an optimal spot that is beneficial to the residents of the island.
usually dredging, you will stay within the existing channel.
There-
You're
So there,
you're going outside of the existing channel, creating a new channel.
this
And you've talked to the agencies about that,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
They
we-
said
they were comfortable with that?
They like that?
so so these sorts of projects will be done throughout the state, where you relocate channels, relocate inlets. Some of these you'll maintain a footprint, you'll follow the deep water, and you follow the naturally moving. But their other project, what the Army Corps of Engineer does every day, is they follow a fixed channel. They put a channel in place and they maintain it over time in that optimal position, and it gets maintained that time by dredging over the years. And that is what many towns have done throughout North Carolina to help resolve their problems. So it's not a unprecedented by any means.
So you're calling this a navigation project, which implies then that you want to make the access out of Tubbs Inlet to the
No.
ocean?
No, that would be a whole other ball of wax.
But then why are you going up so high then?
to be able to bring that water, channelize it such that it would be placed away, so it would not be oriented coming down all the way there. But you bring up a very good point, because when I mentioned that green polygon that's so hard to see up there for you all, when I mentioned that is just a conceptualized footprint, it's very much conceptualized at this point. The way that we go about our business to determine what the best orientation, what the best footprint is to achieve the purpose and needs of the goal of the project requires a lot of data collection and a lot of analysis from engineers working with the resource agencies and the regulators to ensure that the project has been vetted with the best possible science, such that any of the environmental impacts could be minimized or mitigated completely, while achieving the goals that you're wanting to achieve. So there's a lot to go between that green polygon and having a dredge on site. So there's a lot of studies and a lot of work. There's a lot of public comment. There's a lot of agency comment. There's a lot of agency resource agencies, the SAB, shellfish beds. These things all get brought into the mix such that the agencies would find this to be a permittable project. We would never submit a permit application without having vetted every detail and responded to every comment to these agencies. A permit would not get denied because you wouldn't submit a permit without it being basically vetted and accepted through the process. There'll be permit conditions that require additional monitoring. Sometimes, I know with your project right now, you're doing a shellfish relocation project, for example. That's a permit condition that would help alleviate any agency concerns that any environmental impacts would be minimized as best as possible. We look at, for example, shellfish for this one. The good news here, we don't have a lot of shellfish beds, unlike what you have in the northern portion of Jinks Creek. Nonetheless, we still anticipate that shellfish monitoring and surveys would be conducted on the ground for this project as a permit condition. So there's a lot of nuance that goes from this green line here to what would become a viable project. But this is just setting the tone for the type of project that we'd be looking at.
A question about the grant that you. Does the grant cover all the research, all the preparation, all the studies before the agencies even put in writing that they like the idea of what you're doing?
Yeah, the grant covers all engineering and design work, all permitting efforts, the environmental studies, all those aspects at that same 75-25% local cost share. And I believe they even support some administrative work as well. But again, just to rehash, none of that burden would be placed on the town under this hypothesized or draft MOA at this point. But yes, the state does cover
part of it is
those soft costs. A lot of it does get covered. Even pre-construction coordination, going out to bid with bidders, all those efforts that are put forth to get to the point where you've got a dredge on site. They certainly cover all the dredging, all the construction work, but they also cover those other ancillary costs.
Do
Go ahead. Go ahead, Sean.
Palm Cove would take on all the town's cost, up to including employee hours.
That's something I think the devil gets in the detail with sitting down with that draft MOU that we had put forth. But I think that I don't want to speak on behalf of the Palm Cove, but I think they'd certainly entertain those conversations to see what mechanism can make it work.
I don't really have a problem with this, but the most benefit is to Palm Cove, and I don't think our other taxpayers should pay a penny towards that. I remember when Palm Cove was developed and all the animosity and I won't go back there, but I'm a believer in property owners' rights to develop, and as long as it's all done within the proper regulations. So all I need is assurance that it won't cost our other taxpayers a penny.
I think that's the goal that Palm Cove would like to reach with you, is to deliver a project that provides the benefits that they're looking for at this immediate dire need right now with their supersized sandbag, which is starting to slump in. But the only way that they can financially move forward with a $4 million project is to take advantage of the funds that are available from the state to make this a doable project from a financial point of view. From the town's perspective, I understand what you're saying from that, but I think Palm Cove wants to make it loud and clear that this project would have these benefits to the town and visitors alike, be it through increased navigation, the navigability to explore the areas which right now are just too shallow to access, and also to create that recreational shoreline that historically had been there, where folks were able to recreate, pull their boats up, sunbathe, relax. And right now there's a sandbag wall right there.
Yeah, just as sort of a small point in there, once you put the gate up in Palm Cove, people couldn't go down there to recreate or to enjoy the beach. Are you going to put that beach back in there and then open it up, as you said, to the towns and to the tourists?
Yep, I can't answer the questions. You know, I know certainly from pulling boats up, and you know that's public domain.
Yeah.
Once that beach is there, anybody can pull their boat up and enjoy the beach that way. But again, any of these concerns or thoughts or considerations that you all are thinking, I think that the HOA, I'm speaking on behalf of you all right now, but I think they'd at least entertain a sit-down conversation to work out this draft MOA such that these goals could be met.
Based on the erosion rate that you're well aware of at this point, do you have a kind of drop dead point where you have to have something in place?
Yesterday. It's at the point where it's been really frustrating getting through the system, the bureaucracy of being able to have this interagency scoping meeting. It took us months to just get everybody together. The HOA has been kind of screaming, you know, setting off the alarm bell on this one. And it's, you know, one storm, you know, Ian rolled through, and that was fairly scary for them. They survived it. The sandbags are starting to slump in a little bit. So I think it's, you know, every week, every month that comes by, you know, every hurricane season that comes by it's an important time to move forward. And these projects don't move swift. You know, what we're talking about, we've got, you know, an 18-month clock starting right now. If, you know,
that's what I was gonna to say. I mean, I'm sure you're aware of the timeline that we've been through. Just
this is what I do. I deal with this time frame way too often, and they've got that sandbag revetment there that is buying them some time, but it's a Band-Aid. And by law, by rule, the variance says that the town has to explore and look forward to a long-term solution. Gosh, I'm so sorry. I keep saying that town. The HOA. Every time I say that on the record, strike that. The HOA. Yeah, so, it's the sandbag revetment is there for a purpose, but is not lasting forever. They're looking for a project that's going to give them some long-term solutions as the variance requires them to do so, which brings me here today.
Because of the extent of the project and the agency, you have to get the okays and all that. Are they all okay? And it's a big project with the town being the resource to make this thing happen?
That's a great question. So that the shallow draft fund is administered from the Division of Water Resources, DWR. That's who you're working with on this project. And so we've spoke to those representatives and explained this precise situation. And the fact that the bottom line that was discussed to me, if there's a navigational benefit to the project, it qualifies.
So what is your clear explanation to the agencies of the navigational benefit
That you all have
of taking from basically the beginning of Palm Cove out to wherever?
So the image that I showed them was,
I'm just doing this because
Yeah,
we've gone through years and years and years
Yep.
of state bureaucracy and agencies before even the feds got into it that have caused this. I think this was proposed somewhere around 2010. We started talking
2010.
about dredging, and we're now roughly halfway through it, 13 years later.
I don't know if I have a pointer, but again, where you can see you just accomplished a navigation project. You received funds, you qualified for your navigation project, and you can see it stops at 6 feet
Yeah.
right on that part, and it stops at 6 feet right over there. Doesn't even connect to deeper water, which I believe you may have received a variance for that, because typically these permits require you to connect to equal or deeper water for water quality concerns. This project, the proposed project, is the same spirit. You're allowing the folks to leave the canals. You're allowing folks who are in the Bay Area to access what you've already done and extend that navigation further and bring them closer to areas where some vessels could even navigate through Tubbs Inlet in the right conditions. Right now, that's exceedingly challenging. But the navigational benefit comes to both, the property owners, visitors, VRBO folks who come here and want to access beyond those points.
So the dredge material that you're taking away, you're not having to dispose of it or really relocate it. You're just moving it over.
Ideally, and from what we've looked at from this preliminary kind of at this feasibility study level, which we've done at this point, that material looks like, from the VibraCore data we have, the geotechnical data that tells you the sediment grain size, the color, the different constituents that lets you know whether or not it's good material or it needs to be placed in an upland facility. All indications show this is good beach sand. And so it would qualify for placement where we're talking about to fill in that area. Again, devil's in the details. None of the studies have been done. At this point, we're chomping at the bit to get started to see if this can be a viable project. Right now, all indications from that first interagency scoping meeting, no showstoppers, no red flags were there to say this ain't going to work. It was rather come back with the details once you work it out. So right now, the Palm Cove HOA wants to get the green light to be able to access the funds to start the exploratory process to get this project to where it hopefully could be implemented. But if it's found along the way that, for example, the grain size isn't appropriate, or there's Blackbeard's ship is in the channel, is over there where they want to dredge, that's a showstopper that we'd encounter during the way, and the project would just no longer be viable. So right now, the ask really is to at least give a chance for these folks.
So the process, Todd, would be you're seeking council's approval to authorize me to hammer out a memorandum of agreement with you and your client. When that's inked, assuming it gets finalized, then you would set in motion, you all would prepare the application materials to be submitted by the town to the state for the funding, and you'd be shepherding it through. Is that what you're asking for?
That's correct, Grady. So yes, we are asking to move forward with the MOA. So I've heard some concerns tonight or some questions. We would hope that that would be worked out in the MOA process, a memorandum of agreement between the HOA and the town that clearly outlined each party's obligations and benefits to the agreement So we're looking for that green light to sit down with Grady and work out that document. Now, if we can't work out the document, then the project doesn't go forward. So we're just asking at this point, please let us negotiate with the town and see if we can get this off the ground and running.
And I'm assuming council would want that memorandum of agreement to include the details necessary to make sure that the town taxpayers is going to be funding preemptively by your client into an account, I suspect, but making sure that there's not a risk of the town having to pay something because your clients don't cover it like they're supposed to, or they run out of money.
Right. No, we can work out those details in the agreement. I mean, we will be contractually obligated to provide those funds. We will assume the responsibility for the project. We'll indemnify the town for the project. Now, if there's additional steps the town's looking for, we're certainly willing to listen to those.
So you kind of make it sound like the town will have its name on it, but we're not going to have to do too much.
Correct. I mean, yes, we will.
I'm kind of skeptical about that. We're talking about legal fees now. I mean, that'll all be part of this, and it will be covered by the project. There are soft costs
Right.
that are involved
Agree.
in this.
We can, if those are concerns of the town, we can certainly negotiate that. I don't believe the current draft of the MOA covers soft costs, administrative costs of town employees or the town's attorney. We can certainly discuss that.
Those would be things that we would want in there. I
Okay.
mean, we would be concerned with that. Yeah.
And just so I'm clear, we do believe that there are benefits to the town here.
Yeah.
That this is not, I understand that Palm Cove is proposing this project and is certainly the primary beneficiary of the project, but there are benefits to the town. Navigation, a public beach, I know that I've heard about access from the road. Certainly boats can access that beach, and they have in the past. Right now, there is no beach to access by those the boats. So we do think there are benefits to the town.
So I guess what we would do if council makes a resolution to proceed forward on trying to get an MOU finalized, then it would come up at the next council meeting for council to make a decision on the details of what you and I believe
Right.
encapsulates the spirit of what you're asking of the town. And that would be the night that you would be seeking approval of the entry of the memorandum of agreement, and then moving forward at the rate of speed of whatever you get it done for me to look at it from the town's perspective and staff's.
Correct. Yes. So we're looking for the green light tonight to negotiate that document. Assuming we can come to an agreement, that we would then present that to the town council for approval.
I guess it would be at the May meeting.
Part of the things that I raised just are things that have come up in our experience. I mean, one, I think you're crossing into Ocean Isle Beach territory, and there probably is going to need to be some type of discussion with Ocean Isle Beach because of that. We ourselves had problems with, I agree that the sand that you're talking about is high quality sand. I mean, the surveys that we did went right out to the area and all that's the same stuff. But we, in our experiences, had trouble with taking even good quality sand and moving it to a place close by where it would be beneficial to Sunset Beach, if you will. And those are things that just jump out there. Many of those were agencies outside of Sunset Beach, outside of our purview, that had a direct impact and cost us a lot of money over time to do that.
If I could just address that, and
Sure.
I might be mistaken here, but the sand is a state resource. And so it's not a resource of the town of Sunset Beach or the town of Ocean Isle Beach. It's a state resource.
But they tell you what to do with it, where you can
Yes,
do it,
we
how
need-
you can
correct.
do it, and when you can do it.
Yes,
And-
we
and
need the
that's-
state, and that will be going through this
that's
permitting
that's the
process.
problems that we had.
Mhm.
It wasn't that we owned the sand or anything.
So part of the process when defining this project, getting into the nuts and bolts on, where does the actual dredging occur? How does it orient? Part of that process, we call it numerical modeling. You're feeding these really supercharged computers with a lot of information to help understand and simulate how the flow and the transport of sand occurs in the system. And they're well calibrated. This is a gold standard for what we do. Part of that process gets a vetting process through the agencies, and we provide different alternatives, different alternatives that have different goals, different outcomes that you can see. And through that comes what's called the preferred alternative. In that process, the different agencies can weigh in from their own pet resource. So the shellfish guys are going to say, we like how this alternative responds for our resource. A birder might say, well, this one's taking away intertidal shoals that we know is very important for certain bird species. So we don't like that alternative. Meanwhile, Ocean Isle Beach, they're your neighbor in this sense, and they're a constituent in the sense that they can weigh in on this project. And so they were at that interagency scoping meeting originally as well. They expressed what could be their concerns, and they didn't want any sort of shoreline impacts on their side. So that's an obvious and well-known consideration that would be taken through this modeling effort, and we look to see how the shorelines respond when you push play on doing this project and simulate it 10,000 times and see what happens over time. So all those considerations that you're bringing up are very valid and very known to be taken into account. So I appreciate that.
At the end of the day, they're going to have the burden of getting the fund and getting the permitting to do it. And if they don't get that,
Right.
it's not going to happen. And so the risk is not on the town based on what they're pitching, and the burden is for them to carry it forward to try and get the shallow draft funding grant, and then that's part of it. But then they've got to get the permitting and the approval for dredging. If they can't get that, it doesn't matter. And so the concerns you're raising about, well, the sand, I mean, I agree. I mean, that's going to be for them to carry.
So I have another question from the greater perspective of the town. Okay, we've just used one shallow dredging grant, and if we put our name on this grant, does that preclude us from simultaneously doing any additional grants if we need to do that, if we decide to do that?
At this
Or does it get in the way of us being competitive for a grant in the future?
short answer is no, it doesn't prevent us from that. And just to be clear, at all steps of this, we will be fully disclosing to the state the role of the town in this shallow draft fund. We're not trying to hide anything. We've had some communications with Todd that I had that concern to make sure that we're not going to be biased or prejudiced from getting any other funding, whether it's shallow draft funds or anything else, because of our role with our current dredging project, with this proposed project. And I'm satisfied that at this point, I don't see anything that would prevent that or that would constitute any sort of prejudice to the town if need be to go in for a fund or a grant somewhere else for some other need.
Thank you.
Are you now looking for a motion?
Well, I think at this point, absent any more discussion or questions, then I would suggest that based on what the presentation is for a motion authorizing me as town attorney to work towards a memorandum of agreement with the Palm Cove HOA attorney and get it to a point where I think, and Mr. Mr. Ressler would agree, we believe it's in a condition that's suitable for your review and hopefully execution along with Palm Cove HOA, likely at the next May meeting. So you're just giving me authorization to proceed in furtherance of that memorandum of agreement based upon the terms that have been outlined here tonight with the presentations and questions you've had.
So what's the pleasure of council in regards to passing the attorney to attorney thing in regards to the MOA?
I have a motion. I move that we direct the town attorney to work with Palm Cove's attorney to put together a memorandum of agreement for the dredging project.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Just so you know, my goal would be to get that memorandum of agreement prepared in enough time for you all to read it going into that meeting, so that if we have any possible changes, that can be hammered out going into the meeting, and hopefully you'll have a document that you're comfortable with as we go into that meeting for you to pass or decline. But hopefully, based on your resolution tonight, it would be to enter into that memorandum of agreement, which allows the Palm Cove HOA to proceed forward on the fund.
That's we put in the directives at the end today.
Yeah, so the next meeting is the 1st of May. So you give us a week or so
I'll do my best.
or more to think about it. Okay.
Thank you, sir, for your
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, all of you, for being here tonight.
Great.
Mr. Mayor,
If you need to leave, you're welcome.
is there anything else council needs for me to be present for tonight?
I think you're good.
All right.
Dismissed.
Good
Good
job.
night.
All right, thank you. Moving on next is our public comments on agenda items only. Does anyone have any public comment?
There's only one public
All right.
here.
Next up, consent agenda, March the 6th, 2023, first regular meeting minutes, March the 14th, 2023, special meeting minutes, Public Works Department, February 2023 report, Inspections Department, February 2023 report, Fire Department, February 2023 report, Planning Department, February 2023 report, Finance Department 2023 report, Police Department February 2023 report, the American Rescue Plan Act policies. Does any member of council have any questions in regards to any of these items?
No.
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 All right, do I have a motion to
So-
accept the consent agenda?
I move we accept the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Town Administrator report. Go ahead, Ms. England. Thank you, Grady.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few things for you. I echo Charlie and the whole council's big thank you to the town staff. They, every person came together, worked hard. We put it together in about 6 weeks, start to finish. And it was a great turnout, a great event. And we are just so thankful to the council for allowing us to do that, to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the town. Earth Day Arbor Day, please mark your calendar. Plan to attend Earth Day Arbor Day event scheduled for Saturday, April 22nd in the town park. And thanks to the Environmental Resources Committee for planning the event and executing that. And staff will be involved as well with that event. You have the draft budget that Tara laid at your places tonight, and we will be meeting next week on April the 11th, starting at 9 a.m. to start going through the budget line by line, department. Let's see, dredging. The first stage of phase 2 for the dredging project ended last Friday as the moratorium started April 1st. The feeder channel was completed and a small section of the Bay Area was started. In the coming weeks, the shellfish relocation in the figure canals will be relocated to a destination chosen by the Division of Marine Fisheries, and we are waiting on the letter from them that will give us the conditions and tell us the location. And we hope to have that done in April. Then the contractor will return in October of 23, and they will begin by dredging Mary and Turtles Creek on the mainland before moving into the finger canals in the Bay Area in November. Phase 2 will be completed by March 31st, 2024, and will finally bring that project to an end. Let's see. Okay, Mike went over the Calabash River bridge replacement, and he had the exact same thing that I do, so I won't go into that. Hurricane passes. They are being mailed this week. 2 passes will be in envelopes, marked in red, hurricane reentry passes. Please look for them. We don't print a lot of extra of these anymore. So please be mindful and watch your mailboxes for those to come out.
Is that going to be island only?
Island only,
Not
and
the
it's
rest of the town.
improved property only on the island. So if you have a vacant lot on the island, you're not getting a hurricane pass. It's only the improved properties that get the passes. Then everybody's aware of the changes that we've made this year for Beach Patrol. And I just have to give a big happy shout out to everybody that was involved. Chief Childress, Chief Adams, Chief Claymore, Captain Gerganis, and Detective Cox. They worked together beautifully and are making it happen for the Civilian Parking Enforcement Program, Beach Code Enforcement, and the Beach Patrol has become a reality and is completely staffed. And the project programs will step off Friday morning.
Good.
The hours of operation for the civilian parking will be 9 to 6, right, Ken? Daily. And that will go through the season, October 30th. As Charlie was saying, we did have a wonderful contest at the event. The cornhole contest was well attended, and the winners were presented with trophies. The photo contest was a great success as well, and we have been a little slow at contacting those people, so I've asked Tara if she will read the names. These photos will be printed on a calendar for 2024, and we will have these available at the town booth at Sunset at Sunset.
How many,
Giveaway
if
or
you know,
for free? Go ahead. Sorry.
if you know, how many people came in and voted?
It was 80 plus 85. Do you remember? No, how many people voted? Yeah.
We had
I can
over
find
80
out.
photos. There was over 80. Was it 84 photos?
Yeah, 80 photos. And when Marcy and Melissa came in to tally, the conference room in the administration wing was covered with stacks. So it was a great turnout by the public for voting.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
So the winners for the photo contest, well, there was nine different winners and 12 photos. So Susan Mongo, she had two actually that placed in the top 12, Sunset Serenity and Sunset Reflections. Suzanne Dillman had Summer Storms. John Farr also had two. He had the Old Bridge in the Morning and a 4th of July. Maria Elliott had Sunrise Reflection at the Pier House. Dawn Leonard had My Dream House and Patriot Bike. She had two. Michelle Tinger had Captain C.L. Holden. What's the name of hers? Lynn Nesmith had the Kindred Santa List. Neil Harm had Soaking in the Sun. And Chad Wilson had Peace Be Still. And those are our winners.
Thank you. And we will be in contact with those winners hopefully this week. We just have to get to the calendar company to figure out what they're going to need, these pictures in what type of format. And then the last thing I have for you, GFL, the Saturday pickup was supposed to start April 1st. There was a hiccup between us and GFL, obviously, because it didn't start. And we're working through that, and hopefully next Saturday pickup will start.
Okay.
I will put out an email blast just as soon as we have that final word from GFL.
Okay.
And that's all I got.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
No.
We're saying, Carrie, I think you can go, and Richard, I think unless you got anything, you're welcome to go home too. Rest of you get to stay a little longer. All right, next up be our planning board UDO rewrite. Mr. Chad, you got the floor.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. So back in March, the planning board approved and went through the subdivision Article 4. So we are now turning the page to finish up the articles, hopefully in between now and May. They have two pretty standard articles in front of them that look to have minimal change. What first of them being the flood damage prevention ordinance, and then the wireless cell phone tower article. All those will have I will have the last handout to them on the wireless this coming month. They'll actually get that on Thursday, and then prepare them for the second April UDO update meeting. One of the things so ultimately we'll get the definitions in May, and then hopefully have a full redraft come back before the planning board in June, with ultimately potentially making a decision in July to forward that document to the 5EU. That's best case scenario. It could delay a month, but that's where we're at. We are looking to potentially has it on the schedule to do a joint meeting between the planning board and council. That would be in August. We will look at that. Staff will make the best decision. One of the things that I have a question for you all is Wes and I have been talking on the best way to prepare y'all to the best extent of this, and he has offered to do an update to y'all in person, or would you rather do that here in a meeting type set, or would you rather meet 2-on-2 during the mornings or through Zoom or something like that? That's actually a question I'm proposing to you. Which one would y'all prefer to work out?
We would have a special meeting, you're saying, with Wes here?
I mean, Wes would come at a regular scheduled meeting, probably May or June, to update y'all on where we're at ultimately from Wes and the COG. But ultimately, would that work better for you, or would you rather break out and do staff one-on-one sessions?
What do you mean by where we're at? Where we're at could be we finished all the definitions, we got a draft, and that's it. Or is it actually talking us through all the changes?
It is talking y'all through the changes and updating y'all the best we can, and before that document gets to you.
I don't think we want to do that at night.
No. I think
It would not be a long presentation. It would not go through line by line. We were basically giving you an update, but that's kind of where we're at. Like, how do you want this update to come before you, and not just drop a whole book right in your lap?
This would be a summary of changes.
This would be a brief summary of changes, not
Now,
an hour and a half worth of changes and presentation to you.
You would take questions.
Yes.
So I agree with John. I don't think we want to do that at a night meeting.
Okay.
I would be happy with separate meetings in
I
the
would
morning
too.
or something.
It's the pleasure of council.
Or
Do
a
it as a
special, or
council
a special
meeting?
daytime meeting.
Are you all meeting with Wes and Chad individually?
I really,
Do a meeting with Wes and Chad individually.
Two and two.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, does anybody want to have it at night?
No.
That keeps shutting on.
Who was that?
I heard a voice.
We could do it
I
together.
knew I didn't want to have it at night.
We could do it together in a special meeting in the morning if you want to do something like that. You would
Well,
only
if
have
he
to do it
thinks that
once.
you're- If Chad thinks that y'all are getting close to getting the whole book, the summary could be done when they give you the whole book. Such as, here's the summary, now here's the book.
Well, I mean, yes, whatever will work. I'm also willing to, Wes and I've also talked about doing breakout sessions 2-on-2 as well. So
Give Mike and John a 2-on-2 session.
we'll do.
What's the rest of you going to do?
What are you gonna,
They can have one too if they want to.
All right.
So are you expecting a lot of discussion about changes? Is there that many changes that will require a lot of discussion?
We have gone through, and this is basically going to come as one big text amendment to this whole entire book.
Yeah.
Moving stuff around like you've been used to seeing in 12 articles, 13 articles is condensed down to 7. So you're going to see a lot of parts moved around.
Yeah.
It's going to look different. It's going to feel different. We've cleaned it up to make it more user friendly as far as interpreting a little bit easier. There have been some major changes such as minor and major subdivisions. separating those out, minor and major site plans, how they're reviewed. There have been some significant changes in some places and not so many significant changes in others. We took the time to do it right.
And the planning board has done a tremendous job
Yes, they
of
have.
getting into the weeds of and the details of
Yes.
the UDO.
Yeah, we made sure, looking at the 2012 UDO, that when this is adopted in between 2023 and 2024, that it's done right and the town will have a sound document for the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay. Sounds good.
So how do you want to do
Yeah, I
it?
want to do it, yes.
Summary and getting the book at night, or summary and getting the book in the daytime with all of us, or 2x2 meetings?
Well, I think the
I would recommend
summary
2
and
on
giving you the
2.
book would be one time.
Yes.
And then you would come back at a daytime, hopefully, special meeting where you would then discuss the changes, especially the substantive changes that have been made to the document. Would be my recommendation.
So go 2 on 2 first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then Wes and Chad come when
And
they
me.
have the book in totality and give you an overview summary of everything that's changed, and then hand you the book, and then you schedule another meeting for a later date when you've had time to review the summary and the changes.
And that would be a day meeting, a
And that would
special
be a
meeting.
day meeting.
Special meeting, okay.
I actually think that it would be better to do it all together because some people are going to have opinions about changes that others might not have, or vice versa. I just think if there's going to be a discussion about it, it should be with everybody.
And it would be.
In August 2023.
During the day is fine. I mean, but
Yeah.
you don't want to do it at night. I understand that. But
So August, the planning board on the schedule, August 2023, the final draft UDO planning board review and recommendation to the town council would be August. Joint work session between the UDO review, planning board, and town council, potentially in September. Town council review and a call for public hearing would be in October. Town council public hearing in November, and potentially a town council adoption in December. My job right now, as we move forward this, is to not drop a book in your lap and say go. Is to prepare you the
Yes,
best
please.
way I know how to.
Please do,
Yeah.
yes.
That way there are questions and we anticipate the questions, and I'm not trying to skirt the questions. But ultimately, when it gets to you, to prepare you enough to where this is not 6 to 8 more months before we get it adopted.
And being the impatient person that I am, I have asked West and Chad to try to move that up a couple of months, that schedule.
okay.
As quick as we can.
Let's go with it, yes.
Yeah, so.
Thanks,
All right.
Chad.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chad. All right.
Moving on to old business.
Okay.
We tabled
We haven't even got to
the
the
ARC,
business yet,
so we'll
have we?
go to the American Rescue Plan, the grant project ordinance amendment. Excuse me, Ms. Nichols.
So we are finally addressing ARPA. And I have gone through many, many classes with this. And the most recommended way to handle this is revenue replacement. It's a standard allowance one time. And we are basically replacing our law enforcement and fire salaries. It's less paperwork and less policies. It cuts the policies down. There's 5 extra policies. Federal and state money takes effort. So what you have in front of you is the entire expense of our ARP money, which this would essentially, what it would do is put it into our general fund,
So, and then
our fund
And
balance.
once-
Sorry.
if I remember correctly, if we choose something and it's wrong, we have to give the money back. Well, there was something
So this is very limited money. There was a lot of requirements and restrictions on it. They loosened some of that last January, but I wanted to hold out. A lot of towns spent some of the money and had to do additional reporting, and we were in a position where we could kind of hold off and wait and see what the federal treasury came back and said. And so they passed a standard allowance for any town with under 10 million, that we received under 10 million, that we could do a revenue replacement, and we don't have to prove that we had a revenue loss. So we're taking the standard allowance and expensing it through salary replacement, which is one of the allowable expenditures. And so by doing this step by step, as I've gone through it, we've followed all the procedures. We are in line with our policies. I have a report that's due at the end of this month, and we'll have expended everything. And then it'll just be an annual for the next, I think, 3 to 5 years that I just annually have to say that we've already taken care of it. So we'll be good to go with this.
Do we have to go to any other higher agencies to approve our plan? Or is the fact that
This is
you
part
put
of
it together and our town administrator approves what you put together, we have met the requirements to
Yeah.
get, use, spend the money?
Yeah, this is one of the allowable expenditures. So we're meeting their requirements.
So did you say that this will be spent over 5 years? That it will be put
So
into
this will be done. We'll be
So-
done with it with
so-
this.
So we're going to use everything the first year, and that's it.
Yeah, we're in year 3 of this. I've held off because initially this wasn't an allowable use. And in not this past January, but January before, January of 2022, they changed it because people were not spending the money because they couldn't figure out how to spend the money. And so they changed it, and they loosened some of the restrictions. So now we were able to do a standard allowance. Just say that I last year reported that we were going to use the standard allowance and move forward, and then you have to replace it. So we're using salaries, law enforcement, public safety, fire salaries to replace our revenue, basically.
And so the money that would have been budgeted for that goes into the general
So
fund.
yeah, basically we're saying that we spent it on salaries and we're putting it in our fund balance. So it's supplanting.
Well, you've done a
And-
lot of hard work on this process over a couple of years.
Yes.
I'd like to make a
attended
motion that
multiple
we
classes.
adopt the grant project ordinance amendment for the American Rescue Plan Act funds.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great job there.
Thanks.
Very good.
Moving on
Sure,
to
thank
the
Very good.
new business environmental resource committee term expirations. Just looking for
A motion, right?
Yep.
looking for a motion, to pass this on.
I'll make a motion to authorize the clerk to notify the current members of the ERC and advertise 2 open positions and schedule interviews with the applicants.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, amendment to approval, amendment to 9516 public nudity. Claymore McCavis, sir.
You don't have any pictures or anything, do you?
This amendment before you is asking to just take out some language in a current ordinance that we have under 9516 and us taking over code enforcement. There will probably be maybe some other changes that might come with ordinances as we become more familiar with them and start to enforce them on a regular basis. But this is something that is currently on our books that I feel needs to be amended.
Were you issuing citations based on the old descriptions?
When we supplemented Beach Patrol last year, we began enforcing everything as it was written, because if it's on the books, we should enforce it. And we had some awkward conversations with some young ladies who said they felt body shamed because not everybody's built the same. And we put out an order to our people that this was going to be enforced on a complaint basis, that we weren't going to proactively enforce it. But it's on the books, and we should enforce it. If we're going to have an ordinance,
So this
Why have
change
it?
brings us in line pretty much with social standards as they've existed around here for the
it
last
does
3,
with
4, 5 years.
correct with the styles and like I said, I mean, not everybody's built the same.
Okay.
We just need a motion.
That's all we need is motion. What's the pleasure of council in regards to this?
I make a motion that we adopt the change.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on next to our proposed fine increase for unpaid violations, Chapter 95. Chief Claimer, it's you again.
The way Chapter 95 is written, unlike Chapter 72, which council had agreed to a fine increase if violations were not paid within a certain amount of time, our fee schedule, which you'll see there for the beach strand for violations, does not have any teeth to it for unpaid violations. Simply put, violations that are not paid after 3 days will result in a $25 increase. We can't have a flat dollar amount like we do for parking violations, where the majority of those are all $50. So any one of these violations, which range from 50 up to, I believe, 250 rather, for obstructions on the beach strand, if they're not paid within 3 days, would result in an increase of $25. Violations that are not paid within 7 days would result in an additional $25 for a total of $50, which matches the incremental increase that we have for parking violations.
What's an example of placing an obstruction on the beach strand?
That's a good question.
Cabana violation.
Cabanas, yeah.
Cabana violation.
That's right, it is.
Says
Yeah,
it
because
can.
the cabanas are 250.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So a cabana that's not in line with the cabana line.
This would go.
one of the Cabana rules is set up by 7 o'clock, not before. Take down by 7 o'clock.
Correct.
PM, AM, and PM.
Yes, sir.
And pretty much we don't let them pre-position all the cabanas that they want to set up. Is that correct?
That might be something else we need to look at, because the way it's worded, it says they can't be set up. It doesn't say they cannot be laid
They
flat.
can't stake their claims.
Correct. So
Yeah.
that might be something else we'll have to look at.
We should probably look at that.
I have it on my desk.
Okay.
And again, I think as the season goes on, I know our people are gonna pay really close attention to this Chapter 95. So there may be some other things that I bring to you just to kind of bring up to speed.
I think we should take some extra steps to make sure that we publicize very clearly as wide as we can, especially to the rental companies. I don't know, we can't do much with the Airbnbs and VRBOs. That we have police on the strand that are going to be doing the enforcing and going to be making fines. And the idea, oh, I didn't know that I was not allowed to let my dog use the beach for their defecation. There you go. But get it out there and make sure as many people know with a lot of publicity.
For sure.
Dylan, you can help with that too, please.
I have a question. According to 9506, digging of holes on the beach strand, it was my understanding you dig a hole, but you had to fill it in. So it's flat, no digging.
Now there's 18 inches deep and I
5
believe
feet.
it's so it's of a certain size. So if you could put a body in it, it's too big.
All right. All he's asking for us today is about the violations for
Yep.
3 days, the 25 increase. If it went to 7, it would be another 25, which would be a total of 50 on top of the fine.
Yep.
That's what he's looking for. What's the pleasure of council in regards to these?
I move we increase the fines for unpaid violations Chapter 95.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up, fee schedule amendment for Park Gazebo. Ms. England, this is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. With the introduction of the gazebo at the 60th anniversary celebration, when it was used by the bands for the first time, has really introduced the gazebo, and we are getting a lot of phone calls regarding weddings and reunions and events. So we're just asking to add the park gazebo rental at $30 per hour. Sort of mirrors the covered picnic area at $20 an hour. So I just need a motion to approve that if you're good with it.
Pleasure of council in regards to this.
Those are per hour.
Per hour. You
Per
said-
hour.
Yeah, on the original recommendation in front, it says just $30, but it's per hour.
Per hour.
Okay. I'll make a motion. We add a fee of $30 per hour to the fee schedule for the rental of the gazebo and approve the amendment fee schedule attached.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Moving on next is our audit and contract, fiscal year 22-23. Ms. Nichols?
So in front of you have the proposed audit contract. You will see that there is an increase this year, only at $500 for the regular services. We are going to have an additional audit again this year of $3,000. This is due to the dredging project. Anytime we expend money on the dredging project over a certain dollar amount, we have additional audit requirements on that. It's also for the grant, any grants that we received, the Part F grant, the DEQ, the waterway grant. So we will have additional audits due to the grant funding. So are there any questions about the audit contract?
This is the same company that's been auditing us for the
It
last
is.
several years.
It is.
And this additional audit fee of $3,000, would that cover, it's not an additional $3,000 for the dredging or the part of?
So he'll
be in
do
one
all of
basket?
those in one additional audit. If he finds that there's additional requirements and things like that, we would bring an amendment to you for that. But this should be what it is.
It's a pleasure in council.
I'll make a motion to approve the fiscal year 22-23 audit contract with S. Preston Douglas and Associates LLP, totaling $24,000 for fiscal year 2022-2023 audit services.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank
Next.
you.
Thank you. Next up is our Board of Adjustments appointments. What's the pleasure of council in regards to the appointments?
Do it again.
Go ahead, sir.
We had two candidates. You remember the names?
Bruce Hovermill and
Bill Vornum.
And Bill Vornum.
Mhm.
I move that we appoint the two candidates to the Board of Adjustment
Second.
Do I have any more discussion?
with term expiration of April 2026.
with the term expiration of April 2026.
Do I have any more questions?
No, sir.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, next up is the deposition of director for our May 1st, 2023 meeting. The POA, the Palm Cove thing will be on there if they had, the two lawyers get together and come on with that. Is there anything else that needs to be added to the
ERC
The
guidance
ERC.
discussion.
The ERC one, yep.
And the announcement of the beach parking committee.
And we're gonna put all those to the May meeting, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
so far.
All right, anything else?
I just have a scheduling question.
Go ahead.
I have a conflict and I will not be in town for the August 7th meeting. If you want to make a change, if you don't want to change the date, then I won't be there. That's fine. But if you want to change the date, I suggest either the following Monday or like the third Tuesday in the morning.
You want to
August.
change the month of August?
August, yeah,
August meeting.
What's the date of the following Monday?
14th?
14th.
Oh, 7 and 7.
What did you say?
There's
I'm
a
okay.
there's
I'm
fixed
okay with
schedules. That's
Yeah.
Yeah, 14th's fine.
You just need a motion.
Morning, let's have to.
okay.
All right. Is everybody fine? That fine with you, Mike?
Yeah, I'll make the
All right.
motion to change the August meeting to the 14th.
All right. Do I have a second?
That'll be in the evening.
Second.
Be 7 o'clock meeting.
Yep.
Okay. No further discussions. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Got that on there. Katie will have that on the
Yeah,
next
thank you.
calendar. So y'all remembered. Anything else? If not, moving on to our public comments. Does anyone have any public comments? If not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
No further questions?
Thank
No
you.
further comments?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye. Tip offs at 9:20, so you don't need to speed to get home.